In this episode of True Crime Black, we look at the disappearance of a child that was barely 2 years old. When his mother was pressed on his disappearance, she made a shocking confession. Sadly, that confession would be called into question countless times. With that said, let's get started. 2-year-old Tina Vanderhorst is the son of 31-year-old Tina Vanderhorst. He is the youngest of 7 children. Another daughter, Marie, was born prematurely and addicted to crack cocaine in 1988. She weighed only 1 pound at birth. She never left the hospital and died there at the age of 4 weeks. Tina's other 2 sons, who were born in 1986 and 1987, had never lived with her. Instead, they were raised by their paternal grandmother. Tina would visit them regularly. Sadly, Tina had some serious struggles in her life while trying to raise Keyshawn. Tina has been described by relatives as hot-headed. Over the years, she has had serious problems with drugs and alcohol. At one point, she was convicted of drug charges. When Keyshawn was born in July 1993, Tina was actually in jail on charges of theft and a parole violation. Keyshawn was immediately taken away from her and placed in foster care. In August 1994, lawyer Ted Gorka was appointed by a family court judge as Keyshawn's advocate. He was concerned about the deaths of her other children, her drug abuse, and her apparent lack of parenting skills. At the time, everyone agreed that Keyshawn should remain in foster care while Tina was in jail. In the fall of 1994, she was released after the theft charges were dropped. She completed a drug rehabilitation program and moved into an apartment in the 1400 block of North 17th Street in Philadelphia. In November 1994, the Department of Human Services decided to return Keyshawn to Tina. Ted objected to this. He said that while he was not against reuniting the two at some point, he just felt that it was too soon. He noted the deaths of her other children and recommended that Keyshawn remain in foster care. The judge rejected Ted's argument, saying the other deaths were not relevant to the case. The judge approved DHS's plan to return Keyshawn to Tina under the supervision of a DHS social worker. He told the social worker to consult with Ted about the services they would provide for Tina. A few days later, the social worker told Ted that they would not begin providing any in-home services for the Vanderhorsts until January, 2 months after the ruling. In the meantime, the worker would check on Keyshawn once a month. The case was classified as low risk since Tina had never been accused of abusing or neglecting him. Over the next few weeks, Ted voiced his concerns to the executive director of the Philadelphia Support Center for Child Advocates. He also talked with the coroner about the deaths of Keyshawn's siblings. Starting in January 1995, Family Support Services, a private agency contracted by DHS, began sending a social worker to visit Keyshawn and Tina on a weekly basis. They provided her with counseling and helped her care for him. She also attended the agency's parenting classes. She and Keyshawn spent most of their time together since she was unable to afford a babysitter. The workers who observed her described her as a devoted and exceptional mother. They also found no evidence of drug use. Tina told the workers that she was working hard to provide a better life for Keyshawn. She started taking culinary classes. Since she was enrolled in these classes, she was able to get public assistance to pay for his daycare. The daycare owner, Lisa Costin, thought Tina was a good mother who wanted what was best for him. Neighbors reported he always wore clean clothes and did not appear hungry or abused. They never saw Tina mistreat him. It seemed that Tina was finally starting to turn her life around. After 6 months, the social workers from Family Support Services turned the case back to DHS, saying she no longer needed the agency's services. They also requested that DHS close their file on Keyshawn. They did not believe he and Tina needed supervision. DHS did not make any home visits during July or early August. They had no direct contact with Tina, although they did get updates from her parole officer. During this time, no one checked to see how Keyshawn was doing. On August 10, 1995, at the regular 6-month family court review, DHS asked the judge for permission to close Keyshawn's case. They felt that Tina did not need to be under any additional supervision. Ted disagreed. He urged the court not to close the case. He agreed that Tina was making progress, but he felt it was still too early for DHS to close it. He thought it was dangerous to cut off all supervision. The judge ruled in favor of DHS and the case was closed. A few weeks later, Tina's boyfriend broke up with her. She was so upset that she stopped attending her culinary classes. As a result, Keyshawn was pulled out of daycare. One day in early September 1995, neighbors noticed him sitting alone on a windowsill in the apartment. They soon discovered that Tina was not home. She had left him alone. A neighbor pried open the window and held him. A few minutes later, she returned and took him, but she did not say anything. The following week, Tina asked the neighbor to watch Keyshawn for a few minutes. Tina left and did not return until the next day. She offered no explanation for her extended absence. A friend of hers said that they would often hang out and drink, sometimes as late as 2 a.m., in front of a nearby laundromat. It is assumed that Keyshawn was left alone during those times. On September 24, 1995, Tina's sister, Kim, visited her and Keyshawn at their apartment. This was the last time anyone other than Tina reported seeing him. In early October, Tina visited Lisa and told her that he was with his father. Lisa noticed she was very intoxicated and was still upset about her breakup. After talking for about an hour, Tina asked for some money for food. Lisa gave her some money and they said their goodbyes. A few days later, Tina was seen by her landlord's brother-in-law. Keyshawn was not with her, which the brother-in-law thought was unusual. On October 11th, Tina's 2 other sons visited her. When they asked about Keyshawn, she started crying and said, "You're not going to see Keyshawn anymore." When they pressed her about it, she only cried more. When the boys returned to their grandmother's house, they told her about what Tina said. The grandmother called Kim, who had already been concerned after several phone conversations with Tina. She had a feeling something was not right. When she confronted Tina, Tina said that a DHS worker had taken Keyshawn. Kim was still suspicious. On October 13th, she reported Keyshawn and Tina missing after she was unable to find either of them. On October 16th, police officers located Tina. She was unhappy when she learned that Kim had called the police. She did not want to speak with the officers and appeared to be high. They found drugs in her possession and arrested her for violating her parole. When questioned about Keyshawn's whereabouts, she again said that a DHS worker had taken him. The next day, police confirmed with DHS that they had no child by that name in their care. Friends and neighbors told police they had not seen Keyshawn in weeks. Investigators searched Tina's apartment and found it filthy. They searched in and around the apartment complex but found no clues to his whereabouts. On October 19th, while in jail, Tina admitted that the story about the DHS worker taking Keyshawn was a lie. She said that sometime between 3 and 4:30 p.m. on the afternoon of September 25th, a stranger appeared at her door. The woman, who identified herself as Virginia Graham, said she was married, had 2 children, and lived in Philadelphia. She said she had been sent by somebody who knew Tina and knew that she was having difficulties taking care of Keyshawn. Virginia said that Keyshawn would be better off with her. Tina agreed and handed him over to her. Virginia gave Tina a paper with a number on it and told her that she would still be allowed to see him, and that Virginia would contact her to arrange visitations. Virginia then took Keyshawn to her car, strapped him into a baby seat in the back seat, and drove away. Virginia never contacted Tina after that. Tina later added a detail to her story: she had actually sold Keyshawn to Virginia. Virginia gave her $500 in $20 bills. Tina said she later used the money to buy crack cocaine. The police were skeptical of her story. Still, they contacted several Virginia Grahams in the area. None fit the description of the woman who allegedly took Keyshawn. A few days later, on October 23, Tina changed her story again. She said that after smoking drugs with a man in her apartment, she took Keyshawn for a walk in his stroller to a friend's fruit stand on Cecil B. Moore Avenue. She could not remember what had happened to him after that. She frequently left him at the stand for short periods of time prior to his disappearance, but she would always come back and get him eventually. She also sometimes left him at a nearby market, where an employee would watch him. On October 27, Tina was charged with dealing in infants, endangering the welfare of a child, and corrupting the morals of a minor. Because the police did not know what had happened to Keyshawn, the charges against her were limited to endangering him, rather than harming him. Homicide detectives led the investigation into the case. Tina took a lie detector test, but the results were inconclusive. Ted was angry when he learned of Keyshawn's disappearance since no one had taken his concerns seriously. He believes Keyshawn is no longer alive. DHS officials have claimed that they did not mishandle the case. On November 18, 1996, just before the start of Tina's trial, she pleaded no contest to selling an infant and endangering the welfare of a child. She did not dispute the charge that she sold Keyshawn for money to buy cocaine. She claimed that the drugs took control of her and that she never meant for it to happen. In January 1997, Tina was given a 2.5 to 7-year sentence. At her sentencing hearing, she told yet another story. She said that on the day of Keyshawn's disappearance, she was under the influence of drugs and alcohol. When Virginia came to her door, she thought Virginia was a DHS worker, so she handed him over. She denied selling him, saying that police forced her into signing that statement. After Tina was released from prison, she was arrested at least once for prostitution. In October 2016, she was arrested and charged with the murder of 64-year-old Robert Lynch. She was also charged with robbery, arson, and other offenses in that case. The details of that case are as follows. On September 12, 2016, firefighters and police responded to reports of a fire in Robert's Germantown, Pennsylvania apartment. Inside, they found his body. He had been stabbed 77 times. The murder apparently took place 5 days before the fire. Gasoline traces found in the apartment indicated the fire was deliberately set. Tina lived in the same apartment building as Robert, and the two were reportedly friends. A witness said that on the night after the fire, Tina called him and admitted to killing Robert and setting the fire. She said she and Robert had gotten into an altercation, that she stabbed him on September 7th, and that she had taken 2 TVs from his apartment. One of the TVs was later found in her apartment. In September 2017, she was acquitted of all charges. After being acquitted of the murder, Tina seems to have been laying low and staying out of the news. Sadly, that has only led to more frustration involving her missing son. To this day, Tina Vanderhorst has never been found.